Natalie, who's here with us. Natalie is one of our educational assistants at the moment, but she is a premier graduate from CanScribe and also works as a team lead for Nuance. So without further ado, Natalie, go ahead and begin talking. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm glad you could all come. And I just want to say, first of all, that I'm only going to represent myself. I am an independent contractor, so I'm not representing Nuance. I'm just here on my own to tell you how I survived CanScribe and how I got to where I am today. So I'll give you a little bit of background. Like I said, I think I graduated in 2011, so almost 7 years ago. It feels more like 10. At the time, I was doing home daycare, and so when the kids were in school, I was in school. So if they were there 2.5 hours in the morning and then came home at lunch, I had a break with them and then brought them back and then went back on to school as well. If I wanted to take vacation, a weekend off or a week off at some point, then I worked ahead so that I didn't get behind, and that worked out really well for me. One of the things that I wish that I had done more is pay attention during the course and pay attention to all the feedback and really read it and understand it, and taking the time to go back and re-listen to the dictation and follow along with the answer keys. I would have been so much farther ahead if I had done that. A lot of people just want to rush through the course. It doesn't pay off in the end when you do it that way. Another thing I wanted to do was should have done better was get comfortable online. Like you're all here now. This is fantastic. I didn't go online a lot. I didn't network. I didn't do all the things that they suggested you do. So the fact that you're showing up here and doing that, that's fantastic. But then again, too, 7 years ago or 8 years ago, when I was in school, I was afraid of the internet. And and I think maybe I'm just at that age where it was all new to me. So another thing, when I first started doing CanScribe, I really didn't like the surgery reports and the operative notes. And I thought, oh, well, I'm just, I'll get through them. But when I get out and work in the field, I'm not going to have a job or pick a job where I'm going to have to do surgery reports. I'm going to work in some other type of clinic or some other account where that won't be something that I cover a lot of, because I really, really, really didn't like it. I found it really a struggle. That was a bad idea. So what you learn is, if you learn it earlier and learn it while you're in school, you're really doing yourself a favor, because there's almost no way around surgery reports. Every acute care hospital, every hospital will have them, and they want all their MTs doing all reports in all departments. So we don't get to pick and choose the fun stuff. Audrey, if you want to flip the page up for me.
Sure. Can you see it?
I can, yeah.
Good.
Yeah. 2 weeks after I graduated with CanScribe, I started working with InScribe, and that was a good experience and not my best experience. Their schedule didn't work out for me. They had me on an account where you had to sit and watch for reports to come in, and if you didn't click on it quick enough, somebody else would get it, so you had to watch for the next one to come in. And if you got up to go to the washroom and you came back, then somebody might have got a report. You might have missed one that quickly. Their system didn't work for me in that fashion. They also had an on-call thing where your phone would ring in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 in the morning, and there would be a recorded message saying, all hands on deck, there are stat reports that need to be processed. And at 2 or 3 in the morning, I had no intentions of getting up and typing. Now, being just new to the industry, not knowing enough, not asking enough questions, I probably could have said, is there a different account where the structure and the system is different because this isn't working for me. Instead, what I did was I looked for another job, and I got on with Accentus, which is now Nuance, and it was a Canadian company, and I was working with a Canadian account, and so I just stayed there, and I've been there ever since. I worked for 2 years as an MT, and then I was asked to move up into a team leader position, and it wasn't because I was the highest producer, but it was because I was the most consistent, very accountable, very reliable, willing to accept any challenge. And when they first took me on as a team leader, they said, okay, well, we want you to do these ones. We know they're some of the toughest ones, but you seem to be really good at those. So, and I thought I was getting a compliment, but I think they were just trying to train me. So the more I did the tough doctors, the more I got used to them. I could take a report that has 20 blanks and bring it down to, 5 blanks, depending. And it's just like when you have a baby and you're the only one who understands what it says, but the more that you listen to that baby and talk to that baby, you get used to it. And it's the same with the doctors. And this is why I say get used to the accents that you're hearing in the dictations in school. Re-listen and follow along with the answer key, because they tend to repeat themselves in reports and they use the same phrases. So if you've heard it once, you're like, oh yeah, that's what that is. You hear it again, oh, I remember that. He or she said that before. Yep, that makes sense in this content, and it'll build your confidence. If you shy away from those reports, you'll end up with loads of blanks ongoing, and in some industries, some companies, the more blanks you have, then it just doesn't look good. It doesn't bode well for you. So you want to hone your research skills and hone your listening ear. Okay, so organization is what I wanted to talk about next. So what I always say is make a schedule and stick to it. And my schedule kind of runs around my son's school. So I get up in the morning at about 5:45. I jump in the shower, and I might throw my jammies back on, but at least I'm cleaned up and ready to go. I'll bring him to school. I'll even get some work done before I take him to school. Then I come back and I do more work. He comes home for lunch every day, so I have that break. And then I bring him back to school again, and we do the back and forth kind of thing all day. But when I start working at 6 in the morning, I can be done by 3 or 4 and meet what I want to accomplish for that day. When I was an MT, I used to say, okay, I want to make this much money each day or get this many lines by the end of the week. And I would try to work ahead each day. And a lot of times when I first started out, I said, oh, I want to have every Friday afternoon off. And it was beautiful. I loved doing that. And so sticking to your schedule. I do have a mom who is a friend who thinks that, because I work from home, that means I don't work. And she texts and calls constantly, and sometimes I just have to say to her, remember this part where, like, if I was working at the hospital in a clinic, you wouldn't be calling me and texting me. So let's not do that now. Every once in a while, she needs a gentle reminder that I'm trying to be productive, because every time you stop your clock or you pick up that phone, you're not making money. A report that would have taken you half an hour now has taken you an hour because you stopped to do many other things. I guess that kind of incorporated this, the third point we had there, setting goals. How much money per day or per week? So I know how much money per day I want to make, and that's what I aim for. No matter how many hours it takes me. Some days it takes me a little shorter. Some days it takes me a little longer. It just depends on the schedule. So it keeps me focused. So a few research tips. Okay, so headphones. One of the things about headphones, I don't use the ones that look like earmuffs, because then I would die of the heat. It'd be like sitting here with earmuffs on, for sure. I use the earbuds, And the most recent pair that I've got are Bose. And I think they were only about $80, but they are so clear. Now, when we talk about clarity in reports, I know a lot of the reports you're listening to on CanScribe, you're straining to hear, and the sound quality is terrible. Excuse me. When you get into the real world, it's not that bad. It's not even close. Sometimes a doctor will have a technical issue, and if we get multiple reports with the same kind of sound issue, then we can email our boss to email the hospital, and they can find out what's wrong with the system. Sometimes you'll have a doctor who thinks that it's okay to drive along in his car with the window down and dictate on his cell phone while driving, and you'll hear all the traffic in the background. So those are, exceptional cases. Typically, the dictation, the quality, the sound quality is clear. The biggest challenge to overcome will be accents and content. And CanScribe is going to teach you lots of that. So another research tip about looking up drugs. So the obvious one is typing into Google what it sounds like. But if you know exactly what the measurement is, say it was something and it was 10 milligrams risperidone, then put in 10 milligrams first and then put the R into the Google search bar, and it will start making suggestions. And then you can say, okay, now I'm going to look this up in my quick look drug book, and I'm going to see if this matches the patient's medical condition and what they should be having, things like that. So yeah, and another one is for the abbreviations. Now, I've put this one in some people's feedback, Metalexicon, and that is a phenomenal website. You open up the page, Metalexicon, you type in the acronym, it gives you all the suggestions, you find out which one fits. That one even has a tab you can click on for surgical tools and a few other things. But for abbreviations, it's fantastic. I highly suggest using it. I use it almost every single day. Okay, Audrey, I'm ready to move on. Oh, okay, right. So a lot of people, when they get out into the industry, okay, let me see. First of all, I should say this, learn how to use Control F to search documents. Okay, so when you started at CanScribe, you probably got a lot of documents, and you probably have taken things like your account specifics and you've printed out a hard copy so you can have that in front of you. What I want to suggest to hone your research skills is to have it open on your computer on a tab behind whatever screen you're working on, just shrink it down and get familiar with using Control F. So you put your cursor in the body of the report, you type Control F, and a search bar will come up. If you want to look for the word medication, then you type in medication, hit next, and it will highlight it everywhere in the report. For example, right now, when I am working as a team lead and somebody sends in a blank and it's a medication, I can go into the patient's reports, as can they, and open 24 reports at the same time with 2 clicks of a button, use Control F and search all 24 reports at the same time and just scroll down to see and find my match. So Control F is the fastest way. Let's say you've got your account specifics at CanScribe open and you think, oh my goodness, I can't remember what to do with stacked physical exams. So you type in the word stacked in your Control F and it will bring you right to that spot. You don't have to flip through pages. And I've said highlight areas in the report that give you trouble. Put your cursor, block that text, and highlight it with yellow. If you're not sure how to do that, I'm sure somebody would be able to show you that. But yes, using your Control F to search documents is a huge time-saving research tool. A lot of people too, when they get into the industry, it's not about how fast you can type. It's about how fast you can edit. And that's how you're going to make your money. And when I started, there was no such thing in medical transcription yet, anyways, as voice recognition. So when it did come, it was all new. And I'm a girl who uses her mouse, and I'm a clicker. But what I've had to learn how to do is put one hand on the arrow keys and the other hand with the pointer finger and your middle finger on Control Shift, and drag your cursor along with your arrows, stop and highlight things as you need to go. I'm not sure if somebody can show you that on a screen or if what I'm explaining makes any sense, but you want to practice this and do this as much as possible, like a kid on a video game, like people thumbing it on their phones. You get fast at editing, and that's how you're going to make your money. I know somebody who's an MT who is a phenomenal editor, uses this practice, and makes more money than I do. So it can be done. Go ahead, Audrey. We'll switch pages. Okay, so I think I already touched on that. The tough dictators, just teach it like you're their mom. The more you listen to them, the better it's going to get. You'll understand them. Everybody makes mistakes. Even I make mistakes, and own them and learn from them. Be the first person to step up and say, you know what, I made a mistake. That was wrong. Okay, I'll do better going forward. Don't try to hide mistakes or pretend that something else happened. You know, oh, it's just a computer. People make mistakes. We're all human, and we understand that. So that's good. Let me see. When you're going through CanScribe and you'd rather stick a fork in your eye because some of the dictations are so hard and so tough, and you're squeezing your brain and you want to bang your head against the wall, and you call an instructor and you're crying. Not the most professional thing to do. You know, there were times where I sat here and cried, but I never called an instructor. I kept it professional. And I would call in when I composed myself, and I would ask for help, and they were always willing to help. And they're more willing to help you if you're willing to be helped. If you're looking for an easy course, this isn't the one. If you're looking for a course that's going to open doors for you, then you're at the right place. This is a phenomenal course, and you will get out of it what you put into it. So that's about all I probably have to say. Well, we can go ahead and ask questions and
that
do
was
that.
super. And Natalie, I just have to say you hit every single aspect of the course and actually the profession, because you have the right of it. And as you learned when you went through the course, you do become job ready just by being in the course. And that's why it's so tough, but it is completely natural to struggle because it's a tremendously hard skill set to learn. But I think once you go through it, you end up with the confidence like you were talking about. And I felt the same way when I started out, overwhelmed. But then when I realized that I could do it, it's been the most, it's just a giant confidence builder. And it makes me feel so important. What I do matters. And it makes me feel extremely intelligent. So anybody who's in this course and in this profession that's actually doing it, we have to be like rocket scientists, in my humble opinion. So without further
I agree.
ado, we will have to get to our questions. Sandra's asking or saying, I have to learn to quit being so stubborn and flag more because she can't get something. Yes.
Where do you see this?
It's in the
Should I
chat
be able to see?
window.
Oh,
Sure.
I have to scroll down. Sorry, guys. I'm new to this. This is the first time I've ever done a webinar.
Oh, it's
So
great.
I didn't. Wow. Okay. I'm
But
just
I
scrolling down.
agree. And sometimes it is really hard. You know, I'm very stubborn, and like when you were talking about, I have a whole slew of guys that they talk with their cars running, or they swear at somebody in traffic. And, you know, I get really mad if I have to leave a blank, but it ends up being a productivity issue at some point. It's like, how long can you really sit there and look for something or try to hear it, with car horns blaring and things like that. So, and do your best. And that's all I feel like when I've done a report. If I've done my best, I can rest and be confident that I gave them my best. And Sandra, I
Exactly.
think that I prefer ops actually because they tell a story. I can actually visualize what they're doing, so it keeps me focused the entire time. And like Natalie, like you were saying, it does make you so marketable that you can do those. So that's
Absolutely.
thing. And cardiac oncology, all those specialty types of things nowadays are huge. So really, don't shy away from them. Um, Felicitas, I'm sorry if I'm mangling your name. When we're referring to blanks, we're speaking of the 5 underscores that you leave if you can't understand a word, and you might put in a guess. Tracy, when you don't understand a word, a dictator says you can leave a blank. Right. Okay.
Guys, people who are saying they're a perfectionist, yeah, it drives me crazy when I have to send a report back with a couple of blanks. But even in the real world, sometimes these doctors, they talk with marbles in their mouth, they talk
That's
with
right.
suckers, they yawn while they're talking, they turn away from the mic while they're talking, they slur their words so fast that it's like, okay, you know what? I know what you were supposed to say, but that's really not what I'm hearing, so I have to leave a blank. There are perfect reports, but there are a lot of reports where you have to send it back to the doctor and say, okay, you know what? It's in your hands now. I've done the best that I can. And don't feel bad about that. You'd
Right.
rather be safe than sorry. These are
Right.
people's lives. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
that's it. And even like if they click off and you're 99.9% sure that you think you know what it is, but you don't have another report in the database to make sure of that date, that dose, it's just like, I'm never going to take the chance. There's just no way. And it's not on me, it's their fault. So it's like, I would rather protect the patient and send it back rather than have it be on my shoulders that I put something wrong in. So, and I don't think there's a fee for Meta Lexicon, is there?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
Excellent.
Another thing I meant to mention um, is that I have stayed away from all the media, all the negativity, all the haters and the trollers and all the scandals and all that stuff. I can count on one hand the amount of times that I've gone to see what all the hype was about when people are saying negative things about this industry. And if you stay positive and stay focused and worry about yourself and what you can do to get yourself moving forward, don't worry about anyone else.
Great. That's super
Everybody
point.
doesn't everybody doesn't have a perfect experience. Like me with my first job, it wasn't a good fit. That's all it was. I didn't go online and start bad mouthing the company. It just wasn't a good fit. So I found what did work for me, and I moved forward. And I keep your eye on the prize.
That's
It's
it.
it's I love my job. I am so excited every single day to get up and go to work. I learn something new every day more than once, and I love my job.
I know. And the whole thing is, I hate to put numbers behind my years, but I've been doing this for 44 or 46 maybe now years. And they have been talking about speech recognition wiping out the industry since about 1995. I think that's when that started. And my friends all said, you need to get out, Audrey. You need to find a different career. Go back to school. You're going to be out of a job. And here I am, still sitting here, still enjoying my life, still being able to work from home and make a really great living and watch my kids grow up and now my puppies grow up. So, it's all in about, to me, glasses half full. So I think that's an excellent
Absolutely.
point. Definitely.
Mhm. Mhm.
Joanne, I thought I was the only one who has cried in this course. No. There are many people who cry. I've even cried over reports because I got so frustrated, and or I sometimes have cried because they moved me, which is my husband has come in before and said, "Oh my gosh, what happened? Did somebody call?" And I'm like, "No, it was the report." And I just, I feel for people and their tragedies, but we all know the frustration of this course and the bad dictators. So I always think crying's
Well,
a good release.
I have a funny story about crying through the CanScribe course. I think back 8 years ago when I was in the course, I'm not sure how it all worked from the instructor end. I just know that when you got to the end of the course, you let them know there was milestone calls, but when you got to the end of the course, you let them know that you were prepared to write the final exam. And they would look back over your stuff, and if everything was completed, you could move forward. Well, apparently I had about 20 reports that still needed to be redone or I had missed. So I think there's probably a much better system in place now. But of course, those 20 reports were the worst of the worst of the worst. So that took me an extra week, 10 days, whatever it happened to take before I could then write the exam because I hadn't completed fully each single chapter. There was something missing from each one. So I'm hoping that's all different now. But, and I just sat there and I cried. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm never going to make it through these ones.
Well, and I was working for another school, and believe it or not, someone became incensed because she did not realize that there were actually transcriptions that had to be done. She thought that you just went through and took the theory, I guess. And so she just raised, holy heck and back, I can't believe it. You're making me do something extra. And so when I talked to her on the phone and she was really upset, and I said, "Well, what did you think the foot pedal was for? Like a parting gift? I don't understand. How could you be like trained to do transcription without actually doing transcription?" And she didn't know
Wow.
what to say. She goes, "Oh, I guess I should have thought of that." I was like, "Oh my good Lord." But she finished up and she went on to get a job. But I guess, that's the whole thing. It makes more sense. I know it's the frustration part of it, but it makes more sense to do these thousands of reports, you know, to make you ready. Because if you didn't do those, how would you know? How would you know what you were getting into? How would you know the depth of it or the breadth of what your knowledge base is supposed to be? And it isn't like you're going to take a little course online and you're going to get, you know, your have a stamp of approval that you know how to take blood pressures or something like this. This is a big, huge amount of skill that you're supposed to possess. So the nice thing to me is CanScribe's program, you are work ready. You can walk right out the door and walk into a job. And yes, you're going to still have questions, but at least you know what you're getting into. And you're not going to have your degree that's a piece of paper that means nothing and you can't get a job. So, in today's marketplace and how hard it is, how hard we all work to make ends meet, the last thing I think is appropriate is to have somebody have a degree that they can't even get a job in. Or you're supposed to get more training, and where do you get that training? So,
One thing I'd like to add to that, Audrey, is that when you graduate and you get a job and they set you up on an account, you go ahead and learn that account. In a little while, they may offer you another account to pick up. I say go for it. Take on another account. You learn another account of a set of account specifics, and somebody has a question about that, and we'll get right back to that. But never put all your eggs in one basket. Hospitals, clinics everywhere, they have low points and lulls where there's like less dictation sometimes, so you'll want to have a secondary account to go to pick up. Or maybe one week you just want to have extra money. You want to work double. so that you can take a week off the following week, So never put all your eggs in one basket. Always pick up more than one thing. And you know what? The more stuff you have on your resume, the more marketable you are, the more desirable you are, the more experience you have.
That's exactly right.
Yes. Somebody's asking what are account specifics. They said they're new. I'd have to scroll up in the thing.
Um, well, those are
Sarah.
located at the top of every dictation that you do. There's a link, and you should always refer to those. And as Natalie said, I hear every day from you folks that everybody prints them out, and that is fine, except like Natalie's saying, on your job, for instance, I do maybe 14 different accounts every day in a 5 hour period or 6 hour period. So I have to keep those open because there's no way I can remember all those little idiosyncratic things that every single client wants done just a little differently. So I have to keep those open and do exactly what she said, Control F, and go see how do they want their date done for this account? How do they want this done? So, and they do change them. It's not unusual. I can have an account specifics and it can change and be updated 3 times in 1 week just because they've gone over it again with the client and they decided, oh, guess what? We don't want to do this anymore, or this doctor wants this. So they're constantly changing and we have to download new ones like every time we sign on practically. So, or check for updates at least. So, it does become very, very important. And one thing I just remembered too, when you were talking about the keyboarding, you can just, go online and learn keyboarding shortcuts for Word, for anything. And a lot of the ones in Word do apply in the platforms, don't you think, Natalie?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
And the
for
thing
sure.
is, don't try and learn them all in 1 week. I put them on a sticky and I try to learn like 2 every week. I tried 3 and it was too much. So I was content
Yeah.
to just learn 2 a week, but it took me totally away from my mouse because I was terrible at that. Plus, it was really hurting my wrist. And so it really helped my production to do that. But you can't learn everything in 1 day. It's just not possible. So baby steps.
At what point in the course, Audrey, do they have access to or get introduced to the word expander?
I think that's right at Pi 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those of you who are at Pi 1 or having that word expander, use it. Expand all your stuff. When I use it now every single day, it's just easier than writing a whole paragraph, certain phrases that are the same, the name of the hospital you work for, 2 letters instead of 5 words, and that will help with your production. Now that helps if you're doing stuff with regards to typing. It helps if you're editing and you've got the same words coming up that need to be edited, but in VoiceRec that's not always the case. Again, VoiceRec, it comes down to how fast you edit, not how fast you type. But learning to use that word expander and creating your own expansions, investing a few weeks bit by bit and remembering them is going to pay off so much in the long run.
Right. And when I had to go back to editing and typing again, I had my own business, but we lost our last hospital account. So it was killing me within a week. I just could not do that kind of heavy typing anymore or editing by hand. And so I invested in a word expander. The ones that you have to build yourself, like ours, either Phrase Express or FastFox, those do teach you how to do it. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that you have to build every single entry yourself. They don't come with dictionaries. In my case, I needed something so I could hit the ground running. So I invested in instant text. There's another shorthand, whatever floats your boat. You kind of sometimes have to try those. And like Natalie was saying, you have to become familiar with them, work with them, not while you're trying to do your schoolwork. I really don't advise that because you're slowing yourself down on 2 levels then. So take a little bit of time, fool with it, off the clock with your schoolwork and figure out which one works best for you. But the ones that I wanted had built-in dictionaries so that I could just type in a couple letters and see what they offered me in it. In every case almost it was there. And then I can also add my own. I can say, Dr. Smith says this stupid thing every single time at the beginning. I can have 15 entries for Dr. Smith and I can put them in 2 seconds. And like Natalie said, I only type 2 or 3 letters and bang, it's right there on the page. So that saved my life. If I did not or had not done that, I would have made zero. It was so hard for me to start typing again like that. So I think, the mouse work, your keyboard shortcuts, and word expanders, those are the tools that you have to have.
Kate is asking if the position I have now, does it give me flexibility to adjust my hours? And absolutely it does. Um, both the positions I'm in right now give me flexibility. I can kind of work when I want, but the other thing too is I want to work when the work is there. So if I don't do my work in the morning, it's there, somebody else might do it. But then again, I could be on a different account that has a schedule and they've scheduled people. I'm just lucky enough right now not to be. Like, for example, today I'm going to have to leave the webinar 5 minutes early because I have to get my butt to school to meet with a bunch of my son's teachers and give them a presentation about what's going to work and what's not going to work for me. So I'm going to go from here right down to the school and do that. And I make all my hair appointments and dentist appointments in the evening because I don't want to put them during the day when I have to work, or sorry, when I want to work. I'd rather have my evenings free to do what I wanted instead of
Right.
feeling like, oh, I went to the dentist and so I just lost X amount of money because I wasn't working. I'll make that up after supper. That that's not my style. That doesn't work for me. So
Right.
I tend to schedule according to what works for me.
Or
So,
you brought up another good point, doing ahead, and that's what I do. I never like getting behind the 8 ball because every time I have ever done that and said, well, I'll just make it up at the end of the week, something
mhm,
always happened, and I was like, it only took 1 or 2 times, and I was like,
mhm,
not happening again. I'm going to be proactive and make sure I get my
yes,
work done sooner rather than later, so I don't have to worry about it. And
yes,
that's the beauty of, what we do. And like, for instance, when I look on there in the evenings, if I see that there's a whole bunch of work on there, it's my choice. If I don't take some of that, just sit down and work an hour. When I get up at 4:30, it might not be there. So sometimes, it's a juggling game, but I'm like, I think I'll just go ahead and type that hour and a half and sleep later. So, and it usually always pays off. So I think that it's the most incredible job in the world. I could go to all my kids' activities, and we had three. I could, be anywhere I wanted to be, take my laptop with me on vacation, and people would, kind of rag on me and say, "What's wrong with you? Can't you ever get away from it?" And I was like, this is the best job in the world. I can get up super early and do my work and go out and be river rafting in the afternoon. So what's the beef? And they didn't even know I was on vacation. That's the beauty of it. So it
yeah.
is, I think it's the best job in the world. So,
Okay. I see Jerry is asking some questions about Nuance and how do we get okay, what is the system like at Nuance? It's very user friendly. Um, any new system you move to will be a learning curve. I've gone through 4 different systems in the 7 years that I've been with Ascentus / Nuance. Um, when you log on, if there are reports available, they will just start rolling into your QE one at a time or 3 at a time. I'm not sure what it is anymore because I don't type. Um, I'm I cannot speak to their rate of pay because I was grandfathered in. Um, I know that they pay by the line, but I don't know even how all that works because I'm not in the accounting department. And again, I'm not representing Nuance, just myself. So is there a lot of work? Nuance is a large company. They've got loads of accounts. It's one of the largest transcription companies that I'm aware of. I know there's more than one large one, but yeah, it's there's work.
I haven't ever, but like you pointed out as well, they lose contracts, gain contracts every day. So it always behooves you to say, yes, if you have extra work, yes, please sign me up for that account. Yes, I want to learn that. I'd love to do that. And they will remember that you did that and they will give you work. I have never had a shortage of work because I basically will do anything they ask me to do. And I never complain. I never say, oh my gosh, this is the worst account I've ever had. If I'm struggling with it, I'll ask for help or I'll say, can somebody give me some tips on how to increase my productivity on this? But usually I've been able to figure it out. And just because you have the benefit of looking at sample reports, I find that extremely helpful because things I'm stumbling over, I'm like, oh, that's what he's trying to do. That's what they're putting in there. I got it. So just, spending a little time researching that style, that format has really helped me tremendously.
Um, Helen asked if we can recommend any books regarding keyboard shortcuts.
They're
Did she mean
mostly
for the word
online.
expander or?
I think you're talking about keyboard and getting away from your mouse. If you just look up on the internet keyboard shortcuts or even shortcuts for words, you will get, I think, like 150 of them. And that's what I'm saying. You just want to keep a couple of those, like Natalie was mentioning, highlighting a line, highlighting a couple words. Those are the most important ones that you're going to use. Things like that you want to become proficient at, going to the top of your document, going to the bottom, opening, closing windows, things like that without ever touching your mouse.
Doctor sniffs a lot. You will hear doctors burp, fart, cough, sneeze.
Yes.
One doctor one time said, "Oh, I'm going to faint. I must hang up."
Oh
And
my
so I
God.
thought that was, oh yes, I've heard everything. They stop and have conversations with their wives or their husbands because they call in. There's nurses in the background carrying on and
Kids.
giggling, and it's
Yes.
hilarious. You're
Dogs
going to hear so much
barking.
stuff.
Yes. I had one that went
Oh,
in the bathroom and I was so offended and I knew him. I used to go and pick up his work and I just went, Dr. Shope, really? And I said, please don't go in the bathroom when you're dictating. He goes, oh my God, you could hear me? And I said, what do you think? It's invisible? It just, he was humiliated, but I said, please don't do that.
yeah.
Too funny.
Jessica is asking what is the average pay rate for MTs, and I'm going to tell you it varies a lot. It depends on your productivity, and CanScribe will get you ready for content, but your speed is your responsibility.
Yeah. And some people pay by the minute, some people pay by the page, some people pay by the line, some people pay, and be very careful of this. This happens in the US quite a bit. I don't know if it happens in Canada, Natalie, but I actually was working for a big national company and I loved the work, absolutely loved the company, but I couldn't figure out why I was killing myself and not making my line counts. And my husband, who's an accountant, said, Audrey, this does not add up. And he goes, I know how fast you are, and you're like 20 to 25% behind what you should be making. And I'm like, what? So it turns out they were paying by the VBC, which is called a visible black character, which means that they paid for no spaces, no nothing on the line. And it did exactly come out to 20 to 25% pay cut. And so be careful of, how you are getting paid. And that's the other thing. I didn't do my research, except in my defense, they did lie about it. But, it does matter how you're being paid, but you also have to, on the other hand, give that some time. And that's what I was doing. I was thinking, well, maybe I'm just not as productive as I used to be. So I'll give this, a couple months. But after you've done it, enough and you've gotten your speed up, If it isn't working for you, I always say find the niche that does work for you. So, and there are other things out there. We haven't touched on that, but there are other things out there besides just straight medical transcription, like veterinary. Somebody mentioned that, or medical writing. There's detective, law enforcement transcription, all kinds of things out there. So, sometimes you just have to keep looking for the right situation. But anything on your resume is going to help you. So,
Somebody's asking how long it should take them to write the SOAP note. I can't really answer that one. Can you?
well, it would totally matter how much dictation was there because you can have a soap note, excuse me, that is like, a couple lines for each entry, like the S, the O, the A, the P. Or you can have a soap note that's 2 pages long. And it would also depend on how difficult the dictation was. So, at this point, they kind of always have told me in when I was trying to explain how to students how to learn this, that there's a ratio. Some people can type 1 to 1. That's kind of where I'm at, or maybe you are now too, Natalie, because we're like, we can just put our foot on the gas, we hear it, we type it, we're there. But when you're starting out, you can have a ratio that's like 1 to 20, 1 to 30, 1 to 10 if you're lucky. But that means it's going to take you 30 minutes to do 1 minute of transcription because you're listening, re-listening, re-listening, trying to type it, trying to format it. So that all figures into how fast you absorb things and your typing speed. And there are ways to increase your typing speed if you're not particularly fast, but that usually doesn't happen. It happens a little bit during the course, but sometimes you also have to practice away from the course to increase that speed. But it should, just by doing more and more reports, increase over time.
It didn't help us at all with that question.
I'm sorry, I don't think I heard you. Somebody is unmiked.
I heard that mumble, but I
Yeah,
wasn't sure what it was.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay. All right, I'm just reading through a few more of these things on the thing.
Good.
Can you work for Nuance and go south for the winter? I'm not 100% sure because I've never gone south for the winter. I do know that some people that I know that work for Nuance have gone to their trailer for 6 months within the province or within the country, have gone to the cottage. So a lot of people will get the platform that they're going to work on their desktop and on a laptop, so that number one, they have a backup in case the power goes out or something on one, or if they want to travel, or if they're going to be sitting in a hospital visiting, somebody who's ill for a long period of time and they want to continue working. So you just have to ask them about crossing borders, and perhaps there would be an account that you would be able to do that with. I'm not sure the rules, just because it's never come up for me.
Right, but I know just, from working in the US, I had multiple accounts and I had multiple people that worked for us, and I actually took my entire desktop computer with me, and sometimes I took just my laptop if it was a shorter trip, but and it was all secure. I had internet set up at the place that I was working that was dedicated, and I could work anywhere I wanted to as long as I kept it secure. And then later when I worked for other companies, as long as my internet connection is just to them, I'm fine. I can still work for them from anywhere. So, I think that you do have to ask, of course, but I've always found that I could work from anywhere. But I do have to say, if you have a slow connection, it's the pits.
Yeah, then you're
Yeah,
making $2
nothing.
an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Helen is asking, is there anything relative to the legal field not within the CanScribe course, and you would have to do research on your end because I'm not familiar. I've kind of lived in my medical transcription bubble for the last
Right.
7, 8 years. So I can't really speak to that, but I'm sure if they, because they have people in courts that take all those notes, and I think police may be looking to move to dictating the reports to save them time. I'm not sure. It's definitely something that's worth looking into.
Right. And you maybe could end up taking, an adjunctive course. Legal is a little bit different.
Mhm.
I don't have any experience in it, but there are lots and lots of sources of information out there. But once you've learned medical, it's really going to
Mhm.
help you because there are a lot of crossover things, obviously, when people are dealing with medical issues as a result of an accident, for instance. Your expertise is going to be above somebody else's because you know all this medical. So, and
Right.
there are some
Jess
that just are, injury lawyers.
Jessica is asking, how do you go about becoming an independent contractor? I think mostly MTs are independent contractors. If you move up within the company, I'm still an independent contractor as a team leader, but then there's, client operations managers, and there are people that are like, the higher up the steps go, then you're considered an employee, and that all works differently. So I guess it just depends on which position you are at within the company.
Right. And different companies in the US, they handle it all differently. I'm an employee currently. I've been an IC before, and I've had ICs work for me. So it all depends on the situation. And I always say, my husband is an accountant, but he always goes to a higher level. He always asks somebody who knows actually what they're talking about in the laws, just to make sure. And it doesn't have to be pricey. I mean, you can even call the IRS and find out what your obligations are and how much money you need to set aside for your taxes, because that's the one thing that people that have worked for me I've had trouble with. They get to the end of the year and we send them their 1099 and they're like, oh, I forgot to take out taxes. And I'm like, well, what would you like me to say? That's, in the information I gave you that we're not taking out taxes. So, it's the same thing, be proactive. Take out the money every month and put it in a separate account so you have it, so you don't come up short at the end. But, I think most Canadian MTs are all ICs. That's what Deb has told me anyways. But here in the US,
Um,
we have a blend.
Sunshine is asking, do I recommend having both, the laptop and the desktop? Not necessarily. I personally do not have it on my laptop because here's the thing. When I step away from this computer, this desktop, I'm done with work. I need to be able to walk away. If I'm going on vacation, I'm going out east to visit my family, then I don't want to work.
Right.
So that's how I separate and leave work at work in my office. Otherwise, it would infiltrate my whole life. Instead of sitting down there perusing Facebook and watching TV, then I might be going, oh, there's reports in there, I should be working, and I would make myself, I think,
Right.
probably just a little bit loopy. So that's
Right.
my personal preference.
Right. And everybody has them, So the only thing with laptops, I've always been extremely paranoid. If I travel anywhere with my laptop, I never let it out of my sight because I was so worried somebody would take it. And I mean, hypothetically, there's really nothing there because I only had like my account specifics or whatever on there, and I connected to my clients by, the internet, but still, it just really bothered me. So if a bellhop wanted to take my laptop, I was like, no, I'll do that myself. Thank you. So,
One of the girls is asking how quick out of school can you get work? I took a week off before I applied for the job at Inscribe and had a job a week later.
yeah,
And you apply to all the transcription companies that interest you. You are a CanScribe graduate. If they have a place, they will put you somewhere. And remember that the person who's hiring you wants to see you be successful.
that's
So
true.
it's don't be afraid. Don't be like, I'm so scared I'm going to screw up and I'll be a failure. They're going to want to help you. They're going to walk you through it.
Right.
Yes. Ladies, students,
I know
there
you
could be
have to
gentlemen here
go.
too.
I
I have
know.
to fly, so I'll leave you with Audrey. If there's more questions I can answer later, Audrey will let me know, but I'm going to have to run out the door.
Okay.
Thanks,
Be
everybody, for
safe.
coming.
Be safe, and thank you
Okay,
so much,
for
Natalie.
sure. Thanks
Wonderful.
anytime.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Um, and as somebody was asking about the Wi-Fi, yes, you can use your Wi-Fi. Of course, it needs to be protected. So, meaning it just has to be secure. If you have an open Wi-Fi connection, that means like your neighbors could be looking at your computer if they happen to be techno wizards. So I always make sure that I have the highest speed, the best protection. I always have my antivirus, my firewall, all that, hooked up. But when you're working for a company, they check all that for you. Nuance, for instance, I worked for them in the US, and also another couple of companies before Nuance was in existence. And they basically just dial right into your computer, set it up for you, check all your settings, and you're good to go. And they tell you what to do. I don't recommend that, the work computer that you use, you let your kids or your family mess on it, because um, that is or can be a HIPAA violation, just in case they opened something up and they saw it, things like that. I've just been always very protective of my work and my workspace. I have my own, I use a bedroom. It was kind of a hardship, when my kids were growing up, but I just wanted that separation that people knew, my friends knew, my family knew. Even my dogs knew that's my office. If you come in there, that's okay. You're welcome, but you can't come in here and sit at my computer, mess around, play games, go through my stuff. This just is my workspace. And I think that that's important, and as Natalie was mentioning, I had friends that would say, can't you babysit my kids? My God, it's not like you're going to a job. And they just didn't understand the concept that when I was sitting there actually tuned into those reports, I needed 100% of my attention on those reports. I could not babysit my own children while I was typing. Why would I want to babysit someone else's children while I was typing? It's not fair to anyone. So, it did take a little bit of time. My family already knows when they see the headphones on, they're like, catch you later, or they just write me a note, slip it to me, whatever. But it is a job, and as Natalie was pointing out, the more interruptions you have, the more distractions you have, your accuracy goes down, and certainly your productivity tanks, because we can't divide our attention in this one thing. It's not like doing online phone work or something like that. We really have to pay attention. And editing is, the studies have shown, according to some of the supervisors that I've had over the years lately, it's 10 times harder to do than actual typing, just because our mind can travel in a second and it can take us away from what that word meant. We just went right past it. If our attention just flutters for a second, we can completely go past something where he said no and leave that out. So it is very important. I always try to stay focused. I read it left to right and make sure that I'm paying ultimate attention. And if I find that I'm not paying attention, I just take my foot off the pedal and sit there and regroup and decide, okay, I need to focus on this now, and go back and re-listen to that. So it's just, it's a hard job. It's a brilliant job, though, in my humble opinion. And you folks are in the very best, or one of the best courses in the entire world for this type of job. So if you can just tamp down the frustration and know that you have people that care about you, and we want nothing but success for you folks, because we know that it is a hard set of skills to learn. But once you do pass through this course, you have the opportunity to walk right into a job. So I must be going and see what's up on the instructor side of things. I can't thank Natalie enough for being here and for you folks for being here. I love it when I see so many eager people that want to learn more. And if I missed anybody, I'm so sorry. Please just email us at instructors@canscribe.com or akirchner@canscribe.com, and I will make sure I answer you. Alrighty? Everybody have a super day, and thanks again for coming. All right? Okay. Bye for now.